1 second.
Alright, so it's up on my screen, but I can't do much of an audio check here at the moment because of my weird setup.
Okay, turn the sound on. No.
Hi. I'm sure that'll come through.
Okay, that's extremely delayed, at least on my end.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a bit delayed, but like...
I can hear myself and I can hear you fine.
Okay, and we're roughly around about the same volume?
Yeah.
Okay, how's the background?
When I was testing it, I didn't notice. I haven't got it on right now because then I'd be echoing. But, at least I'd be echoing in my head. But
okay,
it looks fine. It looks pretty fine. So.
Yep. All right. So it's more important for like the video because it's the one I'm actually more care about the video or anything like that. All right. Just check my PC health. It seems to be doing pretty good at the moment. And you got the spreadsheet in front of you?
I do. Yes.
All right. So we got that. Now,
what do you got up on the? I see.
Yeah, so
you got coronal creeper.
Alright, so there's three major things we're going to be covering today. And I might as well take away this starting soon bit away. That was just in case like audio could take a bit long. But anyway, three things we're covering today is we've got the nerfs that happened about a week or two ago when we had first scheduled to do this talk. We also have the year of the Raven coming in.
Yes.
And this will be talking. Yes. So we've got a bit of a hint of what might be to come in the next upcoming like set year, and then there's also like some Hall of Fame inductees, and then finally we'll be talking about the actual cards that we reviewed about. Oh, it's a couple of months now.
It has been. It was just before the set dropped. That was in early December?
Yes, it was early December, so it's been close to 3 months since the set's come out.
Yeah.
So we're due for another set, I would hope, in about another...
Some of these cards...
about another month or so.
They changed a lot over the past couple of months. Or at least they changed... The meta has drastically shifted.
Yes, so...
In certain ways.
So originally the re-review would be talking about what will be happening going forward, but now we have to take more of a backseat on this is what's happened, as in this is what happened in the previous one, and this is what sort of changed in the current one. And we would have made a lot of bold predictions, I would have, and I would have been terribly wrong. So I'm glad that didn't happen. And we'll talk about that soon. But before we get any carried away with our re-review, let's talk about the actual nerfs themselves. So, famously, Corridor Creeper has been nerfed to have 3 less attack, down to 2.
Oh boy. So what do you have to say about this one? Like this change? Is it necessary? I think so.
I think that it's also has a lot to do with patches itself, which is also another card mentioned as well. So a lot of people, so this infamously got a lot of reputation because no one really saw it being a thing. They looked at this and went, oh okay, sure, this should be fine. It might see some play. And then it turns out that cheating out something as beefy as this was not only really effective, but it was actually quite easy. And half the reason that Corridor Creeper was enabled so hard was because of how almost quintessential patches became to deck building. It was just starting to show up in all sorts of decks. I mean, I was joking about it like a couple of months ago, saying that, you know, I made a priest deck and I put in 2 South Sea Captains and patches, and that's all I did. Just because if I dropped down a captain and got patches, I got 5/5 worth of stats for 3 mana. +2 ping. It is like, I could go on about how crazy that was, and then that actually started being a thing that instead of just running the 2 Bloodsail Corsairs, you'd run the 2 South Sea Captains just for like the insane amount of value. It didn't care if it had like any synergy or not. And with Corridor Creeper as well, if it's a top deck, sure, it's fine, it's a decent body, which is what I mostly criticised in the review, which we'll talk about a little later, but turns out it was really good.
Yeah.
It was also really easy to cheat out, because when everyone's playing patches, and the thing has charge, so many more things are dying in the first 2 to 3 turns of the game, so you can get this down to like absurdly cheap. Like you
So
can
you
get
end
it
up
down to like
turn 2 or 3. You've
can
got a
see-
free 5/5 that you can just chuck out on the board.
even if it wasn't 3, like this is insane at like 3 mana, because we just talked about
Yeah.
South Sea Captain with patches, which is the same stat line. And the fact that
Yep.
you don't necessarily have to play at that turn, you can cheat more stuff out. So coming down to patches no longer has charge. It still has the really cool effect in shooting out, and
So
it also got nerfed in the audio department and had its voice line changed accordingly, because Patches is no longer in charge. So how do you feel about this one?
rest in peace. Okay, so I feel like it seemed odd to nerf the card like
Just
2
before it's
months
rotating
before-
out? Yeah.
2 months before it rotates out. Like, I really didn't get the like.
I think
guess it's a pre-nerf for Wild, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way I could rationalize it.
It's also the same for
So-
like the other cards. So just going through some other cards that have been nerfed. There's 2 more.
Yeah.
We have Raza the Chains. So now the hero power cost goes from 0 up to 1 for the rest of the game. And then, so that's another card that's also rotating in the next set rotation. And then we have Bone Mare, which is probably the most fair of them all, which had its mana cost increased from 7 to 8. Still a really strong card, but it comes out just a little slower.
Rest in peace, Agriculture.
So the most, obviously the hot topic was Corridor Creeper, because it was just overpowered.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's practically been banished, and it is mostly used for like the fringe evolve tactics or something like that. Like it's now at a point closer to what our original review of Corridor Creeper was. But going to just discussing Patches and Raza, is that these 2 cards are rotating out of Standard into Wild, so I think it's a precursor to making sure that Wild is just becoming what Standard was previously. Even though I feel that there are many other issues that people would rather address in Wild, particularly with Naga Sea Witch is probably a big topic.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they're actually concerned into some degree with Wild, and they are showing much more support with it recently. We've had like much more Wild Tavern Brawls that brought out some more stuff.
Yeah, there was an event up this week, wasn't
Yes, there was, the
Wild.
Brawlicium, where everyone relived the frustration of Shaman again. People just wanted a reason to play Shaman again, which we'll also talk about in the review.
Yep.
So, and then just quickly, that Bone Mare got the mana cost increase, which is fair, but it's not soul destroying as any of the other cards have become.
Yes. At least it's still going to get used. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Unlike
this
some
is
of these
still
cards.
around for another. This will be a year for. This will still be around in the year of the Raven.
Yes.
This was an. Yes, this is very, very interesting. And another interesting thing as well is none of these have been basic or classic cards. So usually when we've seen a nerf like this, it has been basic or classic cards been affected. Like recently we had the War Axe nerf, which was pretty significant. In fact, it's almost banished Warrior, which is a bit sad. But it's interesting what happens when you touch something so fundamental to what the class was built around. As much as like people have been saying for years, but 3 mana War Axe is. 2 mana War Axe is just busted. The fact that it was interesting to see that not only the support for this set didn't exactly help it, but like how much it relied on, or at least the card design previously did anyway. That's all speculation. So, moving on, we have the Hall of Fame inductees. So these cards are being moved from Classic into the Hall of Fame, which means 2 things. 1, you can only use this in wild formats, and 2, if you own any copies of these, you will get the dust without having to actually destroy or dust the card itself come time the Year of the Raven. And I don't think it is nowhere near as significant as the first time we had Hall of Fame, because we had like 2 legendaries go out along with some other.
What was that? We lost Sylvanas and Ragnaros.
We lost Sylvanas, we lost Ragnaros, and I believe we also lost Ice Lance. We lost, I believe we lost Conceal, and we lost Power Overwhelming.
And Azure Drake.
And Azure Drake. Oh yes, Azure Drake. What a great card that was.
That
wasn't necessarily overpowered, but like
no. Good value. Good value.
It just contested the 5-drop slot, and you'd think, oh, I've got some really good synergies, or I could just put it in Azure Drake. So this year we have Ice Block, which I'm sure a lot of people are welcome to that. We have Cold Light Oracle, which has been a bit of an upstart. And then interestingly, we've had Molten Giant. And because Molten Giant is moving to the Hall of Fame, it is also being unnerfed. So, any initial thoughts before we start delving into each of these cards?
Oh, the only one I really have too much experience with is Ice Block. I never use Molten Giant or Cold Light Oracle much.
Well, me, I like Cold Light because I like mill and fatigue decks, but let's talk about Ice Block. So what went wrong with Ice Block? Because it got to the point where I think purely this card existing in the format we have is frustrating. Because sure, a lot of people called for its removal, but it never really was a problem until the last couple of sets. Because if you're
as you can see from the description. As you can see from the description there, it's like it says it all. It's been a centerpiece in the standard decks for years, and they want to make room for some more.
But I feel like there's more to that, and that's only been because of how recent card design trends have been in Mage. Because I don't think it was nowhere near as frustrating to deal with 2 Ice Blocks, because then it made for a very interesting way of play, and it did allow for a certain level of skill when both playing and playing against Ice Block. Like, you had to have things in mind that, fatigue can kill through Ice Block because it's not on their own turn. You had to make sure that you had minimized. There was a lot of skillfully rewarding plays to play with and around Ice Block. I remember there was famously a tournament play in which the best move was for the mage to ping themselves in the face so they would have more health when the Ice Block procced, because they couldn't go down any lower. It actually bought them about 3 or 4 health. It ultimately didn't change the game, but it was the correct move, and it just rewarded very good skillful play. The unfortunate thing is now Mage has a lot of spell generation, and increasingly we've seen there's so many different types at the moment where Mage can generate spells, and specifically they can discover spells, which is more frustrating.
Definitely.
Because now you can have extra Ice Blocks. You can have 3, 4, maybe 5 Ice Blocks, and I'm sure as soon as you pull 1 Ice Block, it's already fantastic. That's bought you a whole other turn for 3 mana. Probably less if you did it through the 2-mana Discover spell, which every mage deck runs, and I actually hate the design of, because if you don't run that spell, you're probably playing the mage deck wrong.
Right.
It's really good. So that's why I believe Ice Block is going. More controversially, Cold Oracle is leaving us. So for someone who has played very little with Cold Oracle, what do you think's going on here?
In general, my memories of Cold Light Oracle are pretty much just my cards getting, like, my hand being full, my opponent playing
By me.
And it's just, oh look, there goes... How many cards did I just lose?
I fully feel that you don't truly appreciate Mill, but I'll let you keep talking.
No. That's I understand this that compass, but yeah, it's very strong. I mean, what do you have to like?
But this
draw 2 cards. Like it's 2 cards, 2/2 for 3.
Yeah. See, I think that's where it probably is also getting removed, is because it's great for aggressive decks, and we're seeing more and more aggressive decks actually run Cold Light Oracle, especially now that there is quite a few classes presently that can avoid fatigue almost actually indefinitely. So, just off the top of my head, you have Druid, which will be losing that ability because Jade will be rotating out.
Jade
You
Idols.
have Warrior, because they have Dead Man's Hand, which has actually so good, we've seen the actual turn limit hit in official matches now with the Dead Man's Hand mirror. Yes, there is actually a turn limit,
crazy.
And if that turn limit is ever reached, it ends in a draw. It forces a game
Do you know
over.
off the top of your head what the turn limit is?
I believe it's 45. If not, it's 90. But I'm pretty sure it's 45.
Wow.
Either way. And then there's also Rogue with the new weapon, Kingsbane. Because what you can do is, when you're down with no cards, you equip Kingsbane, and then you use the Rogue hero power to break the dagger, and that dagger then goes back to your deck. Or at least that's the easy way of doing it. But ultimately, having Kingsbane, as long as it doesn't have too high of a durability, it definitely, or at least you can avoid a lot of fatigue.
Yeah.
Although before the current set with Kobolds and Catacombs, there was Milrogue did exist in a very quirky way with the 3-mana weapon that gives you immunity for the turn you equip it. But they're saying that they're getting rid of this because it's limiting design space around Battle Cry. I find that very interesting. So it means that they're inclined to not like milling cards, which is interesting because they printed Nosferatu in Frozen Throne, or there is some Battlecry related cards that they can't print because the card draw from Cold Light Oracle would be way too strong. So, I'm going to hold on hope even if it takes 2 years, because I have seen the benefit of Kingsbane ultimately mean the much needed nerf of Blade Flurry, which I still miss sorely in its original form. But I'm able to play something closer to Oil Rogue now, so I'm okay. And they had that Tavern Brawl where you could play unnerfed decks, and that was refreshing, so...
Yeah, there's always Tavern Brawl.
And then there's Molten Giant, which Handlock players are rejoicing, and Holy Wrath players like me are dreading because it's just lost 5 damage of Holy Wrath.
Right.
But there was a card that they actually cut from the Ungoro expansion, purely because of Molten Giant and Holy Wrath.
What was that?
It was if I recall, I'm pretty sure they brought her up on the subreddit recently too, but it was a really, like a 2-mana cost Battlecry minion, and what it would do is when you played it, it put the most expensive card in your hand back into your deck, So, because of all the other card manipulation you have, like the new Hammett from Ongoro and some other stuff, you could manipulate your deck to just load it up with Molten Giants and then fire away Holy Rat for 25 damage. Even if it was unnerfed, I'm pretty sure a 5 mana, 20 damage spell is really good. And it draws you a card, which is insane.
Right.
So, this ultimately means that handlock players will have a little bit more success, but ultimately it does free up, maybe we might see that card. Alright. Anyway, so going from this, the Hall of Fame doesn't affect us immediately, so we're not going to talk about that anymore. Now, the nerfs were mostly geared towards aggressive decks and Priest. Now, Priest is still hanging around, albeit the Highlander Priest has fallen down, I believe.
Yeah.
The Death Knight is still really powerful, but like we knew that from experience, and we knew that Priest was still going to be fine because there had been plenty of games where they just would not draw Raza, but the deck was still able to perform very well because of how draw-centric it was and how powerful the Death Knight can be. So now, because the effect from Raza the Chained is nowhere near as significant, and Kazakus was only to supplement that because it was really something nice if you're going for that way. Anyway, now that they're making a more consistent lineup with Priests, but I believe it's still like the big horse, the Spriteful Priests that are doing very well at the moment because they're running duplicate copies. But the biggest loser was probably a whole bunch of aggressive decks. So Tempo Rogue has suffered a whole lot. Aggro Druid has suffered a fair bit. I think the only Paladin has done well. In fact, another aggressive deck has spawned from it because of it. Because how powerful Call to Arms is, and they weren't really running Patches or Corridor Creeper anyway, or at least they'd never really had their win rate affected heavily by it. So, having said that, and then Bone Mare was just in a lot of decks, so it's fair, but I'd still feel that the decks that ran Bone Mare probably would still run Bone Mare in its current inclination. Anyway, so let's go straight into this review. So we're going to do this in 3 stages. We're going to go over each card we totally got wrong. We totally got it wrong. We got it wrong.
Look at all this red.
And we'll talk...
That's alright.
Yeah, we
can't get
a fair bit of red, but we also have like a couple of other things. So cards that we got... So there are cards that we got okay, and everyone else agreed with us. We're not going to really delve into those cards. We're just going to pick out the cards that we totally messed up, and then there are 2 more categories. There are cards that deserve a mention for one reason or another. Either we got something close to it, or something very interesting came up from it. And then we've got cards that we said we were good, but another major source strongly suggested against it. And we got it right despite popular opinion. So we'll go through the red stuff at the moment.
Okay.
Now, I want to go from each quest from top to bottom, starting with Druid. However, I feel like it's a very special case where we need to go straight to a very special card. We've already talked about this one a little bit more. It's time to talk about it again. I'm talking about Corridor Creeper, the card that everyone is talking about.
Yes.
We fucked this one up. I wanted to sort of step around it, but no, we messed this up with the rest of everyone. We thought it might see some play because there was some potential in like Evolve Shaman, and Shaman in general is in a lot of trouble. Why did we get this card wrong? Why did everyone overlook this card?
That's a good question.
So, when we were first talking about it, I feel like we made a very poor comparison to another card. Can't quite remember the name. It was Nerubian something or else. It was a 6-mana 4/4 which had its cost reduced by
I know the
one every time it was in your hand. It's from Old Gods. And a lot of other popular streamers actually compared it to that card as well. And they said, this card doesn't really see a whole lot of play outside of Evolved Shaman. So we picked up on that, and yes, in its current incarnation, it is.
Well, at least we weren't the only ones to call it that way.
However, we did pick up the factor that actually pushed it over the edge was the fact that it's also opponent minions that actually do die. So we did mention that, but we oversaw that. And also, the other thing I mentioned before with the Patches nerf is that it was also because Patches really did enable this card. And I feel like if Patches wasn't in the format and we had something that we had now, Corridor Creeper would be still seeing a whole lot of play, but it might not have suffered so much. Because this looks like it has just been banished like a whole bunch of the other terrible epics that generally come with a set, particularly the neutral ones. So, I'm not sure else how we got this wrong, other than we compared it to a card that already exists, and we totally oversaw Patches.
Did anyone that you're aware of call how overpowered? Because I'm just wondering, like, if anybody called, you know how pervasive this card was. Like there was so many decks running it.
It wasn't until no one called it in reviews. It wasn't until it was seeing play, because generally on the first couple of days you experiment with every card, no matter how bad it is, and people were just thinking there was plenty of room in aggro decks to try this, and it started performing really well, because that's generally what you do. You look at like all the cards and see where they could actually fit, and that actually reminds me of another card we need to talk about a little later, and that's because it's seeing play now because of the room in aggro decks. But we'll talk about that one later. So now I do know that so in the reviews people oversaw it, but shortly afterwards, after it started seeing performance, there was a fair bit of outcry. I particularly remember Reynad from Tempo Storm in the first week releasing a video talking about how much of a problem this card is, and he also mentioned that it's been enabled very hardly by Patches, and he's also talked about his disdain for Patches for a long time.
Right.
I'm kind of sad to see Patches in its current form, because as much as, but I'm okay with it because we are all sick of Patches, the Pirates. But I've been excited for this card as soon as I learned it was cut from the Grand Tournament, because I loved pirate decks back then. Still do. And the only thing. And the thing with this going in its way into Wild is that I won't be able to do the gang up Patches robe, which is a lot of fun. There's nothing more fun than throwing out 3 Patches in a single turn on turn 4 or something like that.
The horror.
Yes. Oh yes. So let's go up to Druid. Now we got 2 cards wrong in Druid. One obvious, one not so much obvious. So. The card, first card we got wrong was Astral Tiger, and I still really like this card. I think it's cool, but there's just not enough, or at least there is just nothing in the competitive space that actually supports it. It's a really cool idea, but cheating out there's much better, stickier minions. And not to mention that what the deck tries to achieve, other decks are doing better at the moment. I think the easiest comparison is that you have the Jade Druid, which already does a very similar thing, that it's always constantly putting threats onto the field. but they could do larger threats. So I feel like this card is still really cool, and if you ever got 2 copies of it, you could definitely build something around it. Like it's not a like I would still be excited if I still pulled some of these cards. But yes, I feel like if it had some more support, I haven't exactly experimented with the deck, but it hasn't seen any competitive play. And then
that is a shame. Who knows? We've still got another 2 years of it being in the meta. So
that's exactly it. But
hopefully
however, whenever we review cards, we review it for the incoming meta.
That's true.
So it's obviously something coming to the back of our mind. But this card we must have in the back of our mind when we go to review new cards that come out and identify whether this card will enable all the cards that haven't seen play. But as for the meta we've seen previously, it did not see a whole lot of play, no competitive play, I believe, and in the incoming meta, it's not exactly changed a whole lot, because now Warlock was the least affected class by the nerfs. In fact, they have some of the strongest decks at the moment, and the ironic thing is that with the fallback of aggressive decks, with the loss of Corridor Creeper and Patches, it was expected that some of the other mid-rangeist decks or combo-centric decks would be able to do well against Warlock. And they sort of are, but there's 2 factors. One, both variants of Warlock Control and Q Block, or the Combo Lock, they're performing very, very well, even against unfavored matchups. And 2, aggressive decks are still there because you have the Dude, or the Silverhand Recruit Paladin, and the Murloc Paladin, which are playing very, very aggressively, and they're probably the only aggressive decks that were least affected by the nerfs. So all these decks that could have come up to counter it, they're being suppressed by Paladin still. However, there's still some interesting things coming up. An OTK Paladin did help seal the Sydney Invitational, which was a fantastic series if you haven't seen that. It was probably some of the best Hearthstone I've seen in years, just because so many wacky decks and like such a stale manner. It's so interesting.
It's always nice seeing stuff like that.
So the next card and the other card that we messed up in Druid was the Ironwood Golem. We actually said this was bad.
Yeah, I still think it's
You still think it's bad, of course,
yeah,
but it turns
it's
out
not bad, but yeah.
Turns out Ascension with 1 more health is still really, really good, and Druid, or Druid in general, has been changed to be so much armor centric. It actually makes like old warrior decks cry because they just have armor coming out of the butt. And generally, if you're trying to shit out like a turn 4 Ironwood Golem or something like that, it also helps that, you know, Oaken Summons fits quite well into it. So there's a lot of synergy with that. Now, we did say Oaken Summons was a good card, and it has seen play because armor is fantastic and recruiting a small minion is good, and Ironwood Golem fits the bill perfectly. And that's also what Druid wants to be doing, is if they're playing a slower deck, they don't want just big idiots with torps. Because they don't exactly have like crazy removal. Except for the Jasper Spellstone, which we will be talking about later. That's going to be a fun one. Alright, so moving on to Hunter. We've got 1 card we fucked up, and that's my fault, and that is the Cave Hydra. I overhyped the shit out of this card. I still feel like this has some potential, but turns out if you're trying to play this on Cove, it's just I was just too stuck on like, this would be awesome with Houndmaster. I was so hell bent on it. Like, I'll take the blame for this because you just didn't care about this card. But I thought this card was kick-ass, and it kind of still is. In fact, I'm pretty sure I saw Brian Kibler messing around with this card the other day, and I'm like, hey, it's doing that cool thing.
Hey, the card's doing that cool thing.
Yeah, I like it when I see the card doing that cool thing, but
Yeah, that thing. Yeah.
I'm biggest fucking Timmy. I like the card doing the cool thing.
Cool.
Hear that.
Good stuff.
I made a deck of Wonders Mage a couple of nights ago, and
Oh, God.
it's fun. It's Yog Mage, but it's faster, and it's actually good.
There he goes again.
Yeah. Anyway, so Cave Hydra, I was considered way too much of the curve, but I was also right about the 3-drop slot, that it is just overcrowded.
Oh yeah.
We can't really
Definitely.
comment it in seeing more play, so let's move on. Now we got Mage. Now Mage, we got one wrong, and that is the Leyline Manipulator. So we said
Right,
that
yeah.
it should see play because in the vacuum, it's really good. It's a Yeti that has positive effects. That's still not good enough for current high tier Mage decks to concern with it. Now we did see that combo Mage that we talked about, where it behaved similar to Quest Mage, in which you just created. It was a different combo for Quest Mage. Instead of using the Antonidas and Apprentice package, you could use this Leyline Manipulator. I can't quite remember how the combo goes, but that tells you about how much play it actually saw. There was a deck and it did have some success, but like it was better to just play Quest Mage, and Quest Mage has been pushed out anyway because it's just too
Right.
slow. Paladin, we didn't get anything wrong in Paladin, which is fantastic. We also didn't get anything wrong with Priest, but that was quite easy. We didn't get anything wrong in Rogue. We did get one thing wrong in Shaman though.
Oh, here we go.
And that is Unstable Evolution, which is still
It's just-
a great card, but I thought it'd be absolutely fucking busted. I thought this card was going to be super frustrating.
Yeah.
And it turned
I can't remember the last time I fought
a shaman.
shaman.
Yes,
Like
so
last
you
time I
might,
even saw
so
a
you
shaman.
might notice, like
Really.
in the spreadsheet here, that I'll quickly show it on stream. The commentary in the third column is pretty much a position in what shaman is in that.
Shaman isn't doing anything
We
to the
practically got, like, any card we said was good or okay, we practically got wrong, because Shaman isn't seen play at all. Which is very unfortunate.
The only new. I really like your note on Rune Spear for the only new Shaman card. Corridor Creeper.
Yes. But unfortunately, for Unstable Evolution, which you can still get some crazy value out of,
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying it's wrong more than any other Shaman card that we reviewed, because I thought it had some really crazy potential, and it's still a good card.
Right.
It is just nowhere near as good as that card. So because that was a big prediction, I am holding myself accountable for that. Now, Warlock, we didn't get anything wrong with Warlock. We didn't get anything wrong with Warrior. However, we got... This is where the interesting things comes in, because we've got a couple of things wrong with the neutrals. And the first on the list is, unfortunately, Master Oakheart, which I
Master
spent
Oakheart.
3 hours talking about.
Okay, so you'll have to talk me through. Like, I haven't seen Master Oakheart, at least personally, played. So what makes this guy so good
So-
now? It's the recruit mechanic. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
As in saying, like,
Yeah?
I said it was really good. I think it has
Right.
the same potential. I believe,
Ah.
and I specifically mention this because this card severely limits card design. Because,
Right.
and this did see a lot of play initially, and the card is still actually very good. Because people were doing this to play out their Void Lords in Warlock. They're able to do some other crazy stuff,
Right.
and I believe in like some Priest variants you could just pull out some really huge things. Warrior also has a lot of like big things with low attack that are taunts and all that. And it's something to consider with because it just builds a board for you and it's really nice. However, the deck it saw most play in with Warlock is that as it got refined, it got cut because you could pull out the Void Lords, even if we're not even talking about the combo Q block here, we're just talking about the control lock where you have the 5 mana dude that recruits a demon. In fact, did I say that we get that wrong? Yes, yeah, Possessed Lackey, that's the one. We said that card was okay, and guess what?
Oh, right.
It is okay.
The amount of times he's pulled out, is it Doomguard?
Yeah, Doom.
Charge?
Yeah.
The amount of times he's pulled out Doomguard or Void Lord on me.
Yeah. And it turns out when you're only running 2 demons,
Exactly.
a 5 mana version of O card that's only really pulling out the one you care about. Turns out that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah. That's
so
fair.
unfortunately, I still believe that this is a card to watch out for. So I will make a memorial for it if it doesn't see play in the next 2 years.
That'll be a shame. As one of the only legendaries I did pull from my packs,
I still think
holding
this
on to
card
it.
is cool, but
definitely.
I will bring him back up a little later because there is a section I want to talk about with some of the neutrals here, which we're not talking about just yet. In evaluating cards. Okay, so we've already gone over Corridor Creeper. Now, Shimmering Courser, we got wrong. And this was a bit of a rogue prick for us, because we said this was good, because this would enable stuff like Quest Paladin to really shine. And
That was what I was thinking. Yeah.
yes,
but
it has a
I guess
really
not.
unique effect, and we picked up on this unique effect, but it turns out a 4 mana 3/3 vanilla body just isn't really doing much for you. And if you're worried about it getting removed, it is a very silence-eccentric meta, but this still gets eaten up by Spellbreaker. So
That is a shame.
it is a shame. So it just turns out the vanilla body itself was not enough to sort of carry it on its own. It was a bad pickup. It was heavily reliant on a whole bunch of other cards, and it was to very little gain. You were better off just getting a solid minion and then spreading out your buffs. Or it could be that you were running too many buffs and it wasn't going to... It was just weren't going to get value out of this, unfortunately. So we got that one wrong. Now, we have 2 other cards I want to point out that wrong, and they're actually for the same reason. So one we said was bad, one we said was good, and it really should have been the other way around. So I'm going to talk about. So the first one is Shroom Brewer, the 4 mana 4/4, restores 4 health, and then the other one is Plated Beetle, which is 2 mana 2/3 beast. Death Rattle gain 3 armor. Now they both achieve the same thing. They want to be able to heal up and act as some sort of neutral healing, as it were say. Now we didn't necessarily say Plated Beetle was bad. We just didn't really give it any mention at all. We just said it was it's a 2 mana. It's a croc. It gives some armor, sure. We didn't correctly identify it as being healing. And if you compare the 2 side by side, when we said this one was good because I was obsessed by the fucking 4-drop slot, because we used to run the fucking Funnel Gate guy from Grand Tournament.
Funnel Cake?
Yeah, so it was an even worse card than Shroom Brewer, but it just turns out that when that's all the healing you have in that format, the card's okay. Not to mention the body's more desirable, seeing that it's a 3/5 versus a 4/4. But the Plated Beetle is fantastic. In fact, this is run because you've got the Death Rattle synergy, you also have the Beast synergy, so this is also fantastic, potentially in Druid and Hunter, which don't really see it too much play. You see this in Warlock. If Warlock's running this, it's pretty good. Or like any Nazoth variants and stuff like that. It's a fantastic card. And we just didn't pick up on it. The only notable entry... Okay, so, and this isn't really a part of what we got wrong, but an honourable mention to Dragon Slayer, because I specifically said, fuck this card, and dragons haven't really been an issue at this point in time. I still hate the card though.
Fair enough.
Alright. So, any comments before we move on? So I'm just talking here.
Yes, there's not enough chocolate in the house.
Thanks, Laura.
You're welcome. That's my contribution to the stream. There's not enough chocolate in anyone's houses.
Yeah, I'm just looking over them again. I think. Yeah. Aside from.
So in general, like, we got a lot of the cards right, but I think it is important to pick out the cards we got absolutely wrong and see what happens. Now, we're going on to the honourable mention category now.
Yes.
And it starts with Hunter.
Yep.
And the first card we have is Rock Delar, which people laughed at in reviews, and it turns out is probably in one of the most competitive hunter decks currently, which is the Spell Hunter. Now, I'll also mention To My Side as well. Now, while it still does not see any competitive play at the moment, we did note it being a decent card in its own right, and if the deck ever did take off, it's fantastic. But the deck has changed from when it initially was running both Rock Delar and To My Side, because now it's given up some of that no minion synergy, because there's only 2 cards, and these are the 2 cards. It also helped that Hunter got a lot of support to enable this deck, because we got some fantastic spells, like even Crushing Walls is seeing like a little bit of play, but I still think it's a bad card. It's just that Hunter doesn't have any other like big removal like that. Like I compared it to Psychic Scream, which fuck that card.
Yeah.
But going back to Rock Delar and To My Side, so the deck has changed so that it runs a copy of Barnes and Yashara. Note that they are both rotating next rotation. But it turns out that you generally get that combo off pretty early, and if you don't, you can just thin them away with... once you've drawn them, it's not an issue. And what Rock Delar is fantastic at is it just fills your hand with cards. It generates a whole bunch of card advantage. The weapon is like, okay, it's a bit heavy, a bit slow, but the fact that it provides like a way of getting cards into your hand, because Hunter has naturally had very little card draw. They already have tracking, which is the most powerful deck thinning agent in the game, but outside of that, they've been very, very particular in how Hunter can draw cards, and I think they're still reeling themselves back in when Starving Buzzard was unnerfed and was just an absolute beast and destroying your own deck and throwing it at your opponent. But it's fantastic because when you're low on like options, you can equip this, and then it gives you like, you know, at least 6 or 7 cards, probably more. And I'm mentioning To My Side again because a lot of people laughed at it, and we said, you know, it does have potential. And in the early couple of weeks, in which, so noting that generally at the start of the seasons, Hunter always performs very, very well because naturally mid-range Hunter or an aggressive Hunter can just punish unrefined decks, and it usually has its week or two in the sunshine, and then the decks refine themselves, and then it sort of falls back, which unfortunately has happened yet again. The only time it hasn't happened was when Call of the Wild first came out, and the whole class hinged on the back of it when it was 8 mana. Unfortunately, we'll be seeing that, but at least it gave Hunter a bit of a shine. But it still was nowhere as good to stave off Shaman, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, next honourable mentions are in Paladin. So Paladin,
here we go.
unidentified mole and level up. So
boy.
I wasn't previously going to mention level up, but I'm going to mention it now because there's been probably the only new deck that has really truly arisen since the nerfs is the self-called Dude Paladin, and it's just when you've got because this deck can now breathe with a whole bunch of these other aggressive options, no longer punishing it, they can actually consistently get out Paladin. The Silverhand recruits much easier. Crystalline is actually seeing itself as a really good card, and it's all these new tools starting to see play. Cold Arms is just that fantastic as well.
So good.
I mean, we
So
correctly identified Call of Arms being like pretty bullshit, and it is pretty bullshit.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the only reason why aggressive decks still exist. But Level Up is seeing some competitive play now because the dude Paladin is really... It's sick, dude. But also the unidentified maul. Now, I put this up because the weapon is actually still saying... it's still really good. The taunt mod still sucks ass, but it's still, you know...
Yeah.
The other options that you can get are still really good. Now, I bring this up because we said it was an okay weapon, but we said it would definitely show up later because we'll be losing Rallying Blade with the next set. But I'm mentioning this is because this is this thing is being run with in conjunction to Rallying Blade, and it's really, really good. I believe it suffered the same thing Coghammer did in Gnomes versus Goblins, because a lot of people said that card was bad because why can't you just run like another 2 True Silvers? But it turns out running it together was also really good. So you'd have the one of Coghammer with the 2 True Silvers.
Yeah.
It turned out it was really good. Alright. Next is in Rogue. And very, very short story here is that there are just the Rogue secrets. So Evasion is seeing play, but the two I want to talk about is Cheap Death and Sudden Betrayal. And fortunately, these secrets just aren't really seeing a whole lot of play. We said they were pretty cool, but it'd be obviously hard to evaluate these ones. Like, we obviously saw Evasion being a really good one because it had close to the power level of Ice Block, but not quite. And that's even without the spell generation. But Cheap Death and Sudden Betrayal were interesting, but were hard to evaluate. Fortunately, they haven't done so well. I believe I see Cheap Death every now and then in Quest Rogue lists, which are seeing a bit more play now, because they are a great deck to play against the Warlock decks with, the Control and Combo Warlocks. But not too much to say about them. They're also hard to evaluate because you would have to change the way you play. And I think an interesting interaction that we had that I want to mention is that with Sudden Betrayal, it would sometimes be hard to identify whether it was actually played or not, because if you only have one minion in play and it has no neighbors, it actually doesn't trigger its effects. Okay, so no mentions for Shaman. A mention for Warlock with the Skull of the Menagerie.
Right, here we go.
Yeah, so a lot of people sort of played this off. We said it had potential, but it would be disgusting and wild. And it turns out it's also disgusting in this form.
Disgusting in standard. Yep.
But it also, another thing to mention is that we panicked a lot about, oh yeah, everyone's just going to run weapon removal first couple of weeks. That never actually happened. There was no real value in having to destroy it, because unless you had the weapon removal response immediately, they were generally going to get value the next turn, because they were going to get at least a Void Lord or a Doomguard out of the field. Okay, the next ones are in Warrior, and the two honorable mentions we're going to bring up are Woe Cleaver and Reckless Flurry. So originally I said I wouldn't mind getting Woe Cleaver as my free weapon, because that would be kind of cool, but I said that it wouldn't probably see competitive play, or at least it would be too slow, and it turns out it's actually pretty fucking good. for as far as warrior decks go, I built a Woe Cleaver warrior because it was very cheap, or cheap for the collection I had coming into. There's a whole bunch of like legendaries I wouldn't mind trying out, but it turns out that the recruit potential is really good. In fact, it feels like playing the very classic control warrior, in which you try to remove the board to draw it out to your late game, and then you throw out really big threats rather than trying to fatigue your opponent. And it turns out if you have a couple of like Woe Cleaver equipped, gather your party, you can pull out some big threats. If you have big threats in hand, I felt running a one of Dead Man's Hand was fantastic to just put a whole bunch of threats back into your deck until you can draw them out with Woe Cleaver again. Because there was a lot of options to sort of minimize the actual minions you had in your deck, so that you would have bigger threats to pull out and ways of surviving until then. So Reckless Flurry. I didn't realize how good it was. I'm mentioning this not because it was a bad card, but I said that it wouldn't be played in conjunction with Sleep with the Fishes, but no, you wanted to play them both. Obviously, we'll always see that next set, but it was a really good card. So I'm guessing you haven't really had much experience with Woe Cleaver, because we'll move on.
No, that's another one. I can't
it was just refreshing because it felt like playing classic Control Warrior, which is what a lot of people wanted. It just never really felt that. It didn't seem like that on the surface.
Yeah, I just can't say I've seen a lot of, like, it's still just been a lot of Q block and a lot of
well,
warrior,
that's the thing. Warrior just isn't
experience.
seen play at all. It's practically as bad as Shaman. No one's talking about it.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
it's practically in the same boat. But I wanted to bring it up because, like, watch out for Woe Cleaver.
Well,
it was a fun.
What'll happen in the future?
Yeah. Okay, so honorable mentions. In here, we've got 4.
What else do we have?
So first we have the Darkness.
Ooh, Darkness, yes.
Now, we said it was cool, but probably wouldn't really say some play. But the reason why I'm bringing it up now is it has actually seen some competitive play in Asia, because people just were super frustrated with the Highlander Priest, so they would tech the ever-living fuck out of this card just to mess with their opponents. Like, they practically ran this as a tech card in every single deck just to, like, jam up whatever Highlander Priest they found. And sometimes they high rolled them, sure, but it was more to just have, like, the 3 copies of the candle in there. Now, the 2 next that are coming up are
what else do we have?
Spiteful Summoner, the Cube, as well as I also want to talk as Grand Archivist, which should have been marked as well. But I'm going to quickly just go over to Fungalmancer to get him out of the way, which is the only other one left in the category.
Right.
So, Fungalmancer, we said, where are we? Lost it. It's this Legion
Should be.
Dragon. Yeah, okay.
Down to the bottom.
It's down towards the bottom. It was just very eerie. Yes, here's the column. So, we said it was like a bad card. It wouldn't see play. And it didn't see play. But it's seeing play now. It's seeing play in aggressive decks like... yes, because it turns out for 1 more mana, you can have a Dark Iron Dwarf on steroids.
What?
Okay then.
Because it gives not only attack and health, and it's permanent. The body itself that it leaves isn't all that great, but it's been finding its place in aggressive druid lists, and probably Tempo Rogue as well.
Huh.
Now, as much as those decks have sort of fallen in power, because you do still see these decks from time to time, they are running Fungalmancer, and it's interesting to see that these are the options. This is generally something you'll see in a set rotation, is you sort of go down the list and you try and find things that didn't quite make the cut before but are making the cut now. And it's interesting to see that play. So we just sort of... These are one of the cards we just palmed off in the end.
Right.
Okay, so going back, big discussion point here is with Grand Archivist, Spiteful Summoner and Carnivorous Cube. And the reason why
Oh god.
I'm talking
Here
about
we
these
go.
epics in particular, because we all said that they had potential, they had really good potential, but they were also very hard to evaluate at the time.
If we only knew.
It wasn't so much that if we only knew. If we actually sat down and spent a greater deal of time, rather than like the 1 or 2 minutes we did spend talking on them.
Yeah.
This is more like a critique on our actual review process, because we said a couple of random ideas with Cube. We kind of like face valued Spiteful Summoner a bit. We kind of had some ideas with Grand Archivist. But we didn't really sit down and went, okay, we've identified these cards as being difficult to review. We should re-review these cards again and actually sit down and try and work something out with these cards, even if nothing comes up. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think in the open, like, there's only so much you can think of for each card, just off the top of your head, right? So I don't know how we could have called, because has Spiteful Summoner found a home anywhere other than Priest? Because that's the main one that I've seen in it.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I'm pretty sure there is like some big spell mage. There's also I think it's just more that Spiteful Summoner, Carnivorous Cube, and Grand Archivist, I'm bringing them all up is because in their own right they have created entirely new decks.
Yeah.
You usually see the Spiteful Summoner and the Grand Archivist together, sometimes not, most likely together. And then you got the Carnivorous Cube, which is spawned the infamous Cube block. But we are actually also seeing Cube Druid, which is actually
really?
Yes, there is
Whoa, okay.
a combo
That's a good one.
you can do, and it's a rather big combo.
I believe when
use things like the charging dinosaur, 8 mana one from Goro. You use Deathwing, Coon. It's quite a large combo, and it's only really sort of coming around. I think it was a bit of a meme, but some people have thought, you know what, I'm going to try and do this with Druid for reals. I did see it at the Sydney Invitational that happened not too long ago. Great series. You gotta watch that series.
Quickly, correct me if I'm wrong. With Carnivorous Cube, I believe either you or I brought up Savannah Highmane. Did that ever become a thing with it? Like with Carnivorous Cube?
Not
was that ever a thing?
Not
like that was
necessarily with
combo,
Cube,
but
but like there are ways
about
of there's like
predictions.
I remember seeing like a big hunter list sort of float around. I think Tice was playing with it.
So
It
nowhere
looks
near
fun.
as much as Warlock, though. Of course.
Yes, we do. I mean, I think it was quite out there. I believe I first saw someone playing Colento against Colento. And Colento had this cube list, and he threw out this combo, and everyone thought, hey, this is crazy cool, we'll try this out. And it turns out it's very easy to do. Warlock has a very powerful card draw at the moment, and they've got the hero power, they have that new 1-cost minion, and it's easy to cheat out the minions, it's easy to tailor the deck. It got refined, it's super powerful, super consistent. It's a really powerful combo deck. That's all right. But the lesson here for us, at the very least, is that we were able to identify that these cards are hard to evaluate. So what we need to do now is we need to not only schedule these fucking reviews earlier and actually do a prop, but we also need to have time set aside for any cards we find that are difficult to evaluate.
Yeah.
So I think the only one I could probably think of is like there's a hunter card, Seeping Oozling. Now that hasn't really seen a whole lot of play, but that's another one that's probably hard to evaluate. Anyway, finally we got onto like the really fun stuff. Here comes like we have a bit of a bag of I told you so's. And starting from the top, we're talking the Jasper Spellstone.
Okay.
Now, streamers and the Hearthstone website did not think this card would make the cut. And we
Right.
said it was actually good. Now, for two reasons, the removal is cheap, and it's removal in Druid. Druid, like, Druid's removal used to be like naturalized or MC tech.
Right.
Mind control tech was your removal. It's ridiculous. And I think what's really powerful about this card, which a lot of people fail to identify, is that gaining armor in Druid is quite easy. Even without the new options it had, the Death Knight,
Yeah.
a simple hero power will upgrade it once. And then it just becomes incredibly tempo play to just, throw off like 4 or 6 damage.
Yeah.
Not to mention they had shit like Oaken Summons, which I'm pretty sure like immediately upgrades it. I'm just going through the thing now. I haven't really played a whole lot of it. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
disgusting. It's insane. And in reviews, it did not score favourably. In fact, some called it terrible, but we got that one right. So go us.
Nice.
Go us.
What is it? What is it currently? 34% of decks now use it.
Yes.
There we go.
Like I'm pretty sure unless you're like an aggressive druid, you probably wouldn't be playing this.
Yeah.
Alright. Next we're going on.
Oh, here we
to
go. I'm looking for. I love this next one. I really do.
Candle Shot in Hunter.
Candle shot.
People
Yeah.
said this was absolutely terrible, and we said you're probably going to be able to jam pirates in it.
Yeah, I remember really liking this in our last review, and yeah, just nobody was calling it before it came out. Like,
Guess what? You saw it. You still see it actually.
yeah, I mean, look, 1/1/3, and you're immune while you attack. Like, I just think that's great.
It's
That's great.
also the fact that you have access to Hunter's Mark, so it becomes incredibly effective.
That's
Not to
very
mention
true.
that this is a ping in Hunter, like I mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we've seen how powerful a ping can be in Mage to sort of slowly chip off something.
Yep.
This ping after the initial equip is free the next 2 turns, or the 2 times you want to use it. And people did initially jam it in for pirates, and it turns out that was just really good. It brought back.
I was going to say, it's a
Face
shame
Hunter.
Patches got nerfed to heck, so it couldn't be more useful against him.
But
Oh,
it's
well.
still seeing play now. It's
Yeah.
people are now
That's
aware
good.
of how good this card is.
That's good, I'm glad.
And this was terrible because why we think we got streamers got it wrong was because they didn't identify synergy with pirates, and they also compared it, and they poorly compared it to Light's Justice, the 1 mana weapon in Paladin.
In Paladin, right?
Yeah, the 1 mana, like the 1 attack, 3 durability weapon.
I
4
can see the
durability, sorry.
comparison, but yeah.
But the problem
you
is,
look at
like,
you look
I
at it
remember
now,
in
what other
some-
choice?
I remember bloody some aggressive paladins when they were trying out like not the Cold Arms, the other one, the small time recruits. It ran like
Yeah.
one of those as a one-off. It was good enough. The deck was bad, but like yeah. All right, this is probably one of my
What we got next?
favorites. A Lunas.
Ah, right. Did nobody? Did nobody call this? You'll have to.
Some
fill
people
me in.
did call
nobody
this,
call
yes,
this as much
but
as
like a lot of people said that like it was highly polarizing. Some people either said this card was good, but there was a lot of
Okay.
people that also said this card was bad. Now,
and it's so good.
I believe people that said it was bad weren't used to playing or did not think of like either a tempo or aggressive orientated secret mage, in which this deck actually made in, and I believe it is still has been and still is like a tier 2 deck, which if it weren't for other decks, the tier 1 decks, it would easily be tier 1. It's probably high tier 2
Yeah,
or something
right.
last time I checked. Either way, it definitely sees play. It's crazy powerful. It's so much
Good.
fun. And I felt like it was also much better actually playing it when I was, Matthew Mercer telling you all sorts of things and trying to bend your mind. But I believe a lot of people got this wrong for the reasons that they thought this would fit in a slower, control-oriented mage, which we said wouldn't be the case. You don't put that in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people that did see potential synergy with like aggressive deck were worried about the fatigue damage and milling yourself. It turns out you just need to just change the way you build the deck, make it so that you can just dump your hand.
Yeah.
And refill it, and if you hit fatigue, you probably would have lost anyway. So being able to draw into that second half of the deck is really, really powerful, makes the deck stupid consistent.
Yeah.
And it solved one of the biggest shortfalls that the aggressive secret mage had, was card draw, because you just have like an empty hand, didn't know what to do all that.
Right.
So I'm very happy we identified that one. Okay. Now, this one isn't really much to talk about, but I am pointing out of this, and this is the Pearl Spellstone, is that on the Hearthstone community review, they said that this card was actually quite decent, but like, we said it was definitely a bad card, and I still believe it's a bad card going in, just because
Right, yeah.
the requirements, shit, it needs to restore health. From the last,
Yeah.
and as much as we got like a little bit more support from that, healing when you're at full health doesn't trigger anything. If it was gain armor in a different class, it'd be fantastic. I mean, have a look at the Druid Jade Spellstone. Even if it had poor armor gain, it's still much better than the Pearl one. So, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about that, other than, like, I don't see, like, people correctly, incorrectly identified as healing being good. And I mean, as much as healing being good, over-healing is still a problem.
Right.
Alright, Priest.
Next.
Here we go. Duskbreaker.
Oh boy. Right.
So, this is a good card, and the community did call this out as a good card. However, this card was not stupid fucking busted like I predicted.
Right.
It's an excellent card, but Duskbreaker does see play. It's just, it's not the frustrating one, and I'm sure people will play around with it if it ever becomes oppressive. I mean, because that's what happens with decks. That's why everyone's running Spellbreaker, because Void Lord is such a high value minion. You want to get rid of it. So I believe that was a great observation by us, saying that we are identifying it as a great card, but it's not like, you know, as busted as some people would think, you know, the Hunter Quest was going to be on release.
Yeah.
Man, I love the Hunter Quest. Okay. Alright, so another one, which the community review on Hearthstone got wrong, is Hooked Reaver.
Which one is that? I don't even remember that card.
Because you said that, and they said it was probably one of the best Warlock cards that come out, that's why we got it right. We identified it as being a bad card, and a lot of people saw it was good. So why did people...
Oh, okay, yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I know which,
so,
I see him now.
why do you think people saw the good in this? Because I wasn't convinced by this card at all.
Give me 2 seconds. This stream's kind of really poor quality at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It does that from time to time. It'll go super blurry. But
Okay. I think my stream health has been fine. That might be on your end. Anyway.
It might be, yeah.
So, I believe I said, like, on vanilla it's not that great, and with that 15 or less health bit, because it's your own, it's not like the other Draconoid thing from Blackrock Mountain where it's your opponent. Like this, I feel like if you're playing this minion on curve, you're probably dead, and if you're not playing it on curve, it's not all that great. It's just stats and top. Why would you play this when, like, if you've managed to survive to the late game, or, you know, wait one more turn and cheat out a Void Lord? Void Lord's a good card. Did you know that?
Yeah. What? No.
Yeah, so this was rated, like, quite highly in the community review. I don't know whether this... Yes, 60% it was very good, 25 saying it was meta-defining in the community review. So... For Mana 7/7, people just still aren't buying into that. Alright,
Yeah.
so okay. And we got 2 more cards to go over that we got really good, and then we will finish the re-review, which is fantastic.
Awesome. I'm rather happy with how I called not the first one, but the second one, because I'll talk more about that when we get to the
Okay.
card.
So the second to last card we'll be talking about is Sleepy Dragon. And it turns out that it's just a good vanilla minion, and I feel that people I think it was the community review that got this one wrong, and it sees like a fair amount of play. Well, I say it's roughly playable. But we thought it was a good card. It would actually see some competitive play, and it did. But I feel like it's sort of fallen off now because Warrior just isn't seeing play. It was really good in sort of big dragon decks because it's a big fat taunt.
Yeah.
And then there's the last one we're talking about today is the Wax Elemental. I really like.
So, what I was saying was I was told repeatedly when I saw this card that how bad it was. That like very vehemently that this card was terrible. So I feel quite validated that
that we got this one
decent.
right. Yes.
That it's actually pretty decent because I really like this guy.
It's really good in Quest Rogue. It's fantastic in probably fantastic in Tempo Rogue. Yeah.
Yep.
It turns out that a 1-drop with a bunch of card text like that, like just card keywords and stuff, is really good.
Yep.
It's effective. It's stupidly effective in the Quest Rogue. And I actually found some success using it in Quest Hunter, which is not a meta deck. Please don't craft Quest Hunter unless your heart truly desires it. But it turns out moving one attack over to health and calling it a day is pretty fucking good. And the fact that it's neutral, I mean, like, you wouldn't run this over like the Protector 1-drop in a Paladin, but I mean, it's a different purpose, and it's really good.
Exactly.
And unless we had anything else to mention, that was the re-review. So
Amazing.
all the other cards we didn't mention at all. It was pretty much in line with the expectations. So if something was like truly good, and then we got it as well, unless there was some sort of disparity, we didn't mention it. But that, I believe, is the review. I really don't have like any closing comments other than the next time we do a review, we really do need to set aside like at least some time afterwards to reevaluate the harder to evaluate cards and actually spend some proper time on them. Because, and I don't think, I mean, we definitely got some things wrong. There was only like so many things far out. It wasn't like we got the majority of stuff right. We did very well, I think.
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing probably about as much red as green, which is okay. So I think those. So let's see. Out of the cards we got absolutely wrong, it was 2 in Druid, 1 in Hunter, 1 in Mage. That's 4 so far. 1 in Shaman, which is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 11 cards completely wrong.
Out of 135, I'll take it.
Yes.
That's pretty decent.
So I think the goal is to get that under 10 next time. The cards we got absolutely right against popular opinion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got 8.
Alright.
And
see if we can bump that up to 10 as well. Yeah.
But I mean, like,
setting lofty goals.
Yeah, apart from that, everything else we correctly identified. So, I feel like we can't really predict about what we're going to say right and we get against popular opinion. It's
Yeah.
because ideally, it's due to the whole controversy. It's more what we get wrong, which is what we need to be more worried about. So going forward,
Oh, here we
the
go.
set there's. I think we also need to make time for another video as well for set rotation because we are losing
Right,
3
yeah.
sets, and
Oh
then
boy.
this is the most amount of cards Hearthstone has ever had in the card pool at this point in time. But
Right.
that's not going to be the case at the end of the Year of the Raven because the One Night in Karazhan is the last surviving adventure, which only has 40 to
Tier.
50 cards.
Free to play tiers.
So we will be getting a whole new, some 380 to 400 new cards over the next year in the Year of the Raven.
Oh boy.
And we will have the largest amount of cards ever to exist in Hearthstone at any given point in Standard around about
That's gonna
this
be
time
cool.
next year.
Lots to look forward to. Speaking of things to come, if you wouldn't mind, if you can quickly pull up that image, if you've got it, of the 3 new teased set icons.
Ah,
Whatever
yes.
that was. Because I was hoping we could talk about that just briefly before we
Well,
close out.
we've done with the review, so it's.
Yeah.
I think we're.
Yeah.
So it's in this update over here.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so here we go.
If there's nothing
Yeah.
else to talk about, because it's going to
Alright.
be all speculation, and at least
Yeah.
hopefully some of my WoW knowledge will come into play here with helping with this.
Yeah, so a bit of
But,
background about that, like, the most I've gotten as close to Warcraft lore is I played Warcraft 3 a fair bit. I mostly played it for custom maps. I'm not talking about Dota. I didn't play Dota, the maps in there. But apart from that, Hearthstone is pretty much where I play a lot of my Warcraft universe and whatever I infer from that.
Random semi-relevant tangent there. Did you see, like, Warcraft 3 is getting a lot of love lately? Like,
Yeah, it is. I think
it's surprising.
like it was
very
nice
surprising.
when I first started playing Hearthstone because like, hey, look, there's a couple of cards I remember, and then there were some cards like, where the hell did you come from? And then I realized,
Yeah.
oh, it's linked with this, and like things have changed and shit like that.
Yeah, because I think they recently updated the public test room on Warcraft 3 to have widescreen, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, and then they had like an invitational tournament for Warcraft 3. That was, again, really surprising.
Alright, so I'm gonna let you
who knows
take it
what they've
away.
Okay, right. So let's
So-
get back onto the cards. Yeah, so
Right.
Year of the Raven. Right, well met in Ben Brode's terms. What do we? So we've got these 3 sets, these 3 icons. What exactly do they mean? So I think we've been teased. I've seen a lot of people talking on Reddit and stuff like that. So in rough terms, the first one looks very magical, very perhaps druidic, sort of. I've seen a lot of people talking about Well of Eternity and stuff like that. Who knows what we could get? It's a very night elfish portal, so like Emerald Dream or something like that. I don't know if Dirge, you're familiar with any of these things,
well with the
but
Emerald Dream.
yeah. Whereas the middle one is, I think, very much easiest one to call. Lately in WoW, there's been a lot of talk about the Void and Void Lords, like all this crazy magic and stuff like that. And in the center of it, you've got the Ethereal, who are,
Which
as
we have
we've
seen some cards
already.
for already.
Yes, there are plenty of them in Hearthstone already. We've got there's a couple in Mage. Just trying to remember the names off the top of my head.
There's Ethereal Arcanus, there's Ethereal Peddler
yeah,
and Rogue, which
yep.
I love playing with.
If anyone,
There's
I
only a
feel like
handful. There's also
the one I
Rafal.
remember, Rafam was the one, that I remember the most out of.
But he
League
was
Explorers.
an
That was a
original
fun time.
character to Hearthstone, I believe.
Yes. As are the rest of them, but I've not seen Rafam turn up in WoW, but they did add Sir Finley Mogulton in WoW, so who knows what they could do in the future. But yeah, the ethereals are very much the centerpiece of like some of the newer content in WoW, and that portal there is 100% an ethereal portal. So
Right.
who knows what we'll get with that. This last one though is definitely the most up in the air one. Like as I believe I mentioned to you last night, it's very, there's a lot of things that it could be. It could be a shaman portal, it could be something to do with elementals, it could be who knows what, a maelstrom one or something like that. There's just a lot of speculation. I haven't really seen too much about that one. Like I've only really done a little bit of digging but of what the community's saying, but who knows. Lots of speculation to look forward to in the future though. Yeah.
All right.
That's I think the most I can say about them at the moment, but hopefully I can give more of an update once we hear some more feedback. What we'll say.
All right. Well, I think that just about does it. So, yeah. Now the only thing is that we would be getting more information about the next expansion within the next 24 hours. However,
oh really?
I mentioned this,
right.
There was meant to be a live stream. However, they have since cancelled it due to issues on the ladder. I don't know whether this has been resolved at this time, but we've had our first ranked season where we're under the new ranked season rules, where you only need to do 5 ranked matches.
Yeah.
And the rank placements afterwards would be different. It'd be calculated much differently, so that we'd stop getting all these people at rank 20 getting completely floored by people that were at rank 10 and 5 and what have you.
Yeah, right.
But towards the end of the season in Europe and other ones that follow in that same time zone, like I think the Asia server as well, they were experiencing some problems going into the next season, and not exactly sure what the technical difficulties were, whether and what they actually entailed. However, it was severe enough that they disabled ranked mode indefinitely, and then time came across for North America, which is where we play on as Australians, where it got to their reset, and then they disabled it prematurely because it's like, well, we still haven't resolved the issues, and because of how severe these issues are, they have cancelled this upcoming stream or whatever they were planning on doing to actually go and resolve the issue. So I'm just going to quickly check while we're here, but I believe the game is still up. I'm not sure if there's been like any progress on it. There's been a lot of like back and forth on the official forums there, I believe. Oh, okay, that's pretty bad. Try going to the next page and at 404 on me. Interesting. So is that a case page? Very interesting.
That's weird.
It sounds like at this time it is still a problem. However, I believe the game is still on, and I kind of feel like after talking Hearthstone for like, what, an hour and a half, we should at least get some show games in, maybe just between us.
Right. Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly cut the stream just for the video to upload on YouTube. I won't start that process yet, but then we'll come back, we'll have a couple of quick games of Hearthstone to round out the stream, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so see you all again very shortly, and if we don't, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this re-review, as well as a bit of a preview of what's to come in the game.
The floor is covered in